right now, it's not about the sailors, it's not about the deployment, it's not about really what's best for the Navy, best for the country. They're weaponizing this against the president. Captain Fennell, your thoughts on this?
Well, Steve, thanks for having me on. I was 29 years in the Navy, and in the first 20 years, I was on carriers at the squadron level, the carrier air wing level, and then at the strike group level, across in the Med, but mostly in the Pacific. And then the last years, I was on the Blue Ridge, which is the command ship for the 7th Fleet. So I've had sea duty in many places, like you. And what you're just described is true. And I have a wide network of retired Navy colleagues, and we've been talking about this, very intensely for the last 48 hours. And to the best of our knowledge, the Lincoln has not lost any person from suicide. They had one guy that did jump over, and he was immediately picked up and removed from the ship. And another person climbed up on a rail, and he was prevented from jumping. And as you say, in the history of the Navy, this happens frequently. I was on a carrier myself up on the flight deck running, and a sailor that had gone to captain's mast was going to be assigned bread and water in the brig for 3 days, and he didn't want any part of that. And when he was released from the captain's mast and they were escorting him to the brig, he broke free and ran on the flight deck and ran to the fantail and jumped off. So it happens. Not everybody, and there are almost 6,000 people on these nuclear carriers with the air wing and the ship's company. So it happens. I would say that these long deployments are putting a stress on us. But as the Wall Street Journal said this today, the president's decision to strike Iran didn't cause the Navy's readiness issues of today. So what we're experiencing and what we're talking about is much, much larger than about just what's happening with Iran. It's a reflection of the neglect of the national security apparatus on having a strong Navy. And as I've said on this show repeatedly, in 1986, when I was commissioned, the United States Navy had 600 warships. Today, we have less than 300. How did that happen? How is it possible? Go back, and you played some great episodes with Natalie here in the last week about showing our senior 4-star officers in bed with the Chinese in front groups talking about how they're going to manage America's decline. Well, it's those kind of people that got us in a position, this kind of thinking, not just inside the Pentagon, but at the Hill and the Congress. And so we're reaping what we've sown in terms of, the stresses and strains on our sailors. I have colleagues that were on the Ranger, USS Ranger aircraft carrier in 1983 off of the North Arabian Sea, trying to keep the Strait of Hormuz open in 1983 because of Iranian small boat and RPG rocket-propelled grenade attacks against ships in the Strait. We've been doing this for a long time at various ebbs and flows. And so we're going to take the Lincoln away now, and we're going to replace it with our 4 deployed aircraft carrier, the George Washington, and we're going to leave a gap in the Pacific for some period of time. Okay. I'm hearing rumors.
Okay, hang on. Before I want to get to the gap, and I want to get to the geostrategic nature, but I want to go back. If there wasn't an issue, why did we so quickly trade out the carrier that's on patrol in the Pacific and there to make sure that the Chinese Communist Party understand that defense of Taiwan is a very high priority for us? Why did we switch it out so quickly? One of my concerns here is that, yes, this is a very stressful deployment. There's no doubt about it. We're going to get into it with McCabe about what happened in Bahrain in the early days of the war and how the Navy were still tied somewhat to these logistics chains inland. But why would you essentially all of a sudden the media puts pressure on some of the families are putting pressure on. Next thing you know, we're making this is a major geostrategic move. We're taking the carrier that is there so Japan and Korea and the Philippines and Taiwan and Vietnam know that the Navy's prepared to fight. We're taking that, and we're taking that now to the North Arabia Sea as we send the Lincoln back home, sir.
Right. That's my concern, is that we are responding to this political pressure, which is from the anti-president cadre that are on TV day after day. You didn't hear these same people you didn't hear this General Manner get up and say it's unacceptable for the president to say this or that. Well, you know what's unacceptable is General Manner getting up and bad-mouthing the president of the United States. He's a retired officer. Why don't you just stow it and write your congressman and express it privately to them? That's not helpful. And so these same people never said anything when Joe Biden had sailors at sea and they were on deployment for long periods of time, or when Barack Obama was on president, but they only do it when Trump or Bush was president. I have another colleague that was on board the USS Abraham Lincoln in 2003 for the shock and awe campaign that occurred at that time against Iraq and Afghanistan. Guess how long they were on deployment in 2003? 290 days. So it's not unprecedented. This has happened before, but nobody's fixing the root cause.
Jim, hang on for 1 second. We'll take a short break. Captain Fennell McCabe from the White House next.